Let's fucking do this.
I'm the Homer Simpson to your Mark Hamill, dude.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 53 of the Serial Chillers podcast. Today, we cover one of the 2 deleted episodes. We already recovered Richard Chase. Today, we are going to recover Albert Fish. This one is very deep, very sadistic, and unfortunately, but fortunately, we're going to read the Grace Budd letter, which is very graphic. So if you're not ready for that, skip over that one. MaMa Chey returns. My sister Kim is here, and across the internet in a bunker far away, co-host Greg. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 53 of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right. Welcome to episode 53 of the Serial Chillers podcast. 53 of a million. Greg and I took a week off last week. I feel a little rusty right now, Greg.
I feel great, actually, which is good. For the first time in a long time, I feel like a human being instead of like what I really am.
Ooh, secrets are coming out. So we're coming to you from the Super Network studio, and let's get right into it. How goes it, co-host Greg?
It's going well. I'm, like you said, we took a week off. I'm getting back into the swing of things.
Feeling good, feeling fine. The bunker is full tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am Lord. I am here with 2 guests you guys both know. One of them you seem to be quite fond of. One of them really wants you guys to be quite fond of her.
Nah, I'm cool.
Welcome, MaMa Chey.
Hello.
And my sister Kim.
Oh, shit, sorry. Hi. Just kidding, love me.
The ever graceful Kim, as I like to call her.
You've never called me that before. Never.
Yeah, I just said I like to call you that. You wouldn't know what I like to call you.
That's true.
And, again, co-host Greg, across the internet. So,
yeah.
All of you guys are very familiar with how the show works, but for anyone that isn't,
newbies.
Let me break it down for you. Each week I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys can chime in on my story, and if you have a story of your own that you brought that is true crime, dark, creepy, unsolved, or otherwise mysterious, please feel free to share it. I believe everybody here tonight has a story to share. That's nice. Lastly, if you have questions about questions, make sure to ask questions, because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never ask questions.
Gotcha.
Any questions? Then welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast. Ah, yes. Today's serial killer is another remix. I believe this was our 2nd episode. It is now down, and now it's episode 53, Albert Fish. You guys have no idea what we're about to get into.
Fishy.
Your faces told me all I needed to know, and it was that you don't even know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I do appreciate the fact that you've got your mom and your sister on for Albert Fish, though.
Yeah, they're going to know why you said that real soon.
Uh-oh.
So, question number 1, as always, what year is Albert Fish born?
Okay, we all know I suck at these games. I've lost every one.
You got this, Mom.
You've never won, MaMa Chey?
Never.
Maybe that's why the crowd loves you, though. Like, nobody gives a
underdog?
shit about the Cubs anymore. They won one. Like, they're not a sweetheart to anybody. Maybe you just keep losing.
Okay, maybe so. People
Tonight's
still
your
love me
night.
if I lose.
Yeah.
Be the 2015 Cubs.
Okay, so what year was Albert born?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say... Kim's covering hers like I'm going to cheat off of her.
You never know. Kim is an educator. She knows to cover her answers. Y'all, do you guys have answers written down?
Yes.
Show me your answers. Kim says 1976. Mom says 1944. Neither of you are very close at all. But Shy is going to take the points because Albert Hamilton Fish was born May 19th. We're going to have to edit out that weird sound you just made.
No, leave it. Let the people know.
That was my happiness.
Albert Hamilton Fish was born May 19th, 1870.
Holy
to
shizzle.
Ellen Fish and Randall Fish.
We're going old.
So, Shy gets 250 there. Kim misses. Very short as far as questions today, guys. We only have 7 questions today. So, everyone means a lot.
Bring your A game.
Yeah, something like
I
that.
don't have any other game.
So, Albert Hamilton Fish was born May 19th, 1870 to Ellen and Randall Fish. He was born as Hamilton Fish in Washington, D.C., not Albert. I think he adds that later. He is said to have been named after Hamilton Fish, a distant relative, who was a Secretary of State to Ulysses S. Grant. So that's a family name. His father was 43 years older than his mother.
Ew.
Fish was the youngest child. He had 3 living siblings, Walter, Annie, and Edwin Fish. Many members of his family had mental illnesses, and one aunt suffered from religious mania, which is common in schizophrenia sufferers. So essentially, her whole life becomes fanatic religion. And some people, think about, have you ever been maybe walking down perhaps Hollywood Boulevard or Las Vegas Boulevard, and the crazy ass person starts telling you, my son is the devil. He's the fucking devil. Just the crazy.
Yep.
These
And
poor
they give
people.
you-
The ones that speak in tongues.
Right. They're on the streets. They're getting no help. But this is almost exactly what is happening to his aunt. And there's a long line of mental illness stemming from some type of bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, fanatic religion. Religious mania. So anyway,
Wow.
his father was fairly normal and well-adjusted. He was a riverboat captain. When Albert was 5, his father died of a heart attack at the 6th Street station of the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1875 in Washington, D.C.
I gotta say, being a riverboat captain is probably the coolest fucking job I could ever imagine.
Like, you don't have to go out on the open water.
Yeah, I don't want to be out there fighting fucking icebergs.
steer away from the sides.
Big-time gambling while some guy sings "Old Man River" off the back of my boat. That's all and I want those garters for your arms.
Oh,
So
definitely.
when I deal cards, people really know what people think I know what I'm doing.
Albert was the youngest child, and he had 3 living siblings: Walter, Annie, and Edwin Fish. Many members of his family, again, so he's the mental illness is sort of running rampant in his very near and distant family, not his direct family, but it's there, and it is running strong. His father dies when he's 5. His mom puts him into an orphanage because she's not able to handle all of the children on her own.
She had 3 others?
3 others,
Okay.
yeah. So it's 1875 at this time. He's placed into an orphanage. While he's in the orphanage, he's given a nickname. Question number 2. What is that nickname? Is it A, Stinky Fish, B, Hamilton Bamilton, C, Ham and Eggs, or D, the Weirdo? Stinky Fish, Hamilton Bamilton, Ham and Eggs, or the Weirdo? All right, you guys got answers?
Got answers.
Let's see them. Kim says Stinky Fish. Shy says Stinky Fish. And the score remains the same because no. Although it is a very clever name that I invented for the sole purpose of this game show, they called him Ham and Eggs. Hamilton, Ham and Eggs.
Stinky Fish, Albert Fish.
Yeah, no. Mine's better for sure. It's just that's not correct.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
kids called him Ham and Eggs. This was apparently an orphanage where children were very often whipped. It's 1875. I can't imagine even what it was like. I can't imagine really what 1975 was like, let alone 100 years prior. So
Yeah.
Fish throughout his life will claim that this orphanage is where it all starts for him because he's he's pretty intense. He was frequently whipped and beaten there by the staff. He saw it happen to a lot of other children and eventually discovered that he enjoyed the physical pain. The beatings would often give him erections, for which the other orphans would also tease him. So while he was like getting his lashings up in front of everybody, he'd be like,
Yeah. And how old was he?
like 5, 6, 7 at this point. I think he spent yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it sounds like. So the beatings gave him the erections. He gets teased for that as well. So he's ham and eggs that gets boners for beatings.
He can't control it.
So
He's a baby.
yes. So he said in his own words that his experiences here would, quote, take root in his head. By 1879, his mother had got a government job and was now able to look after him and took him back. So 4 years. So he was there from the ages of like 5 to 9.
Okay.
Ish. So right in there. However, his various experiences before being taken back by his mother are going to strongly affect him. Essentially, she got him out too late. He started a homosexual relationship in 1882 at the age of 12 with a slightly older telegraph boy. I think he was 16 or 17, they said.
I gotta say, he's way ahead of the curve. He's setting trends.
Yeah.
Being gay in 1882.
Being
that
gay,
shit will
come
get
on.
you killed.
Yes. Yeah. He was definitely locked in a closet.
And then whipped and then
Yes.
teased for how he responded to it.
My question really is in 1882, how do you decide to like give the nod to the other guy? Like,
It's not your hairstyle or how flamboyant you dress.
It's the telegraph boy. So the telegraph boy comes up and you're like, excuse me, telegraph boy, do you like hand jobs? He's like, of course. And you're like, cool, because I love to give them. Is that something you're interested in? And they're like, yeah. And before you know it, you're getting an 1882 hand job.
Yeah, but he's 12. I mean, come on.
An 1882 hand job.
Yeah.
That's different than a 2018 hand job.
Absolutely.
It's in sepia tone and and every once in a while it cuts to a black screen with white letters and it says, ooh.
So good.
so yes, he's in a homosexual relationship in 1882. Greg, you are correct. He's very
Forward thinker.
Yeah, he's a forward thinker. I like that. So let's just stop thinking that now, because the telegraph boy introduced Fish to such practices as drinking urine, eating and enjoying being around or playing with feces, essentially sadomasochistic beatings. They would use this paddle that had like essentially thumbtacks in it and spank each other with it.
Oh my
It
God.
sounds to me like the telegraph boy was the 1882 version of FetLife.com.
I can't pretend to know what that is currently.
No,
No, nobody?
I'm out.
Okay.
No, I'm
Yep.
out.
Yep.
I'm going to
Yeah,
search
me
it
too.
on
I don't know what the
Google
fuck
real
he's
fast.
talking about.
Now,
Greg's embarrassed.
now Greg has to
Definitely
decide
doesn't have
whether
a
he's
profile
going to
there.
edit that out.
Leave it.
No,
I think stays.
I, based on context, I get an idea of what you're talking about, Greg. But
Holy shit.
Let me
I just
Did you
Googled it.
go?
It's,
You actually went there?
FetLife is a social network for BDSM fetish and kinky community.
there you go.
Welcome back, Shy.
I'm gonna hit the red button that says join.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
All
dad.
right.
I don't think dad would
$9.95
like
a month,
that.
This can be your life.
So yes, another thing that Albert likes to do, and I don't know that it initially starts here, but this is definitely the basis for it all, is Albert throughout his life is going to take like needles, and he's going to just kind of stick them into
Not his.
his gooch. He was into sticking them into his gooch and just leaving them.
In the coffee table.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
So, and it wasn't just there, but that was like his spot. He would take just long, thin sewing needles and insert them to never be, because it brought him pain, which
made
brought him joy.
Oh God.
Right. And if you stick it inside yourself, it always hurts. You can't get it out, and you're thinking about it too. And it,
Yeah, you get that certain move and it just sticks you, and then
Didn't
you.
he say that like he enjoyed that, like he would shift a certain way and it would hurt,
Exactly
and then it would
it.
remind him what he did, and it would like just turn him on all over again.
yes,
Oh, God,
that
that's-
that
ugh.
is correct.
what
Shy had
a
already
night.
hit on that without knowing that. So, yes, he starts seeing these boys. He also begins visiting public baths where he could watch boys undress and spent a great portion of his weekend on these visits. So, he's hanging out at the Y,
the
watching dudes take a
Timmy,
shower.
yeah. Who's the guy with the needles in his dick that won't quit
Oh
staring?
my god.
Oh, that's Albert. It's best not to say anything. Just take your
him,
shower and
Don't
get out of
worry about
here.
him. As long as you don't beat him, he'll be fine.
So, 1890, Albert, he's 20 years old. He's going to take his freedom, his homosexuality, and all of it, and head to New York City. Start a life for himself.
Okay.
Question number 3. What job did he do right when he arrived
Oh, God.
to New York? Was it A, food delivery, B, male prostitution, C, house painter, or D, a cook?
Male prostitution is just too easy because that is exactly what I went to.
Same again?
Yeah.
Food delivery, male prostitution, house painter, or cook? What did he do when he got to New York?
Can I answer when they answer? Or after they answer?
Yes, of course you can.
I know you sent me the outline. I just haven't gotten around to,
I
opening it.
can't even. Okay, I'm just going to say I think he was a male prostitute.
Mom says prostitute. Kim says cook. Shy's going to score 250 more points because when he did arrive in New York, he becomes, for a short time, a male prostitute.
Did he wear the cowboy hat?
He's the inspiration for the naked cowboy.
He did wear the cowboy hat, and they were like, "Hey, cowboy, I like the way your spurs jingle jangle." And he said, "That's not my spurs. That's my
my-
scrotum."
Oh shit.
There you go. Who knew Greg was on tonight? On a roll. So yeah,
Nobody saw it coming.
he goes and he's doing some male prostitution. So at this time, he said that he also begins raping young boys, a crime he kept committing even after his mother arranged for him a marriage. So he's doing male prostitution work at night to get some money, and during the day, he's raping boys. That's kind of like his thing at this point.
Oh my God.
In 1898, he is married to a woman 9 years his junior. They had 6 children in total: Albert, Anna, Gertrude, Eugene, John, and Henry Fish. Throughout the children's life, they would be, I'm pretty sure these 6 kids came in like 7 years too, by the way. Throughout the children's life, they would be part of his sick little games that were part of his sadomasochism. He was essentially having his children cause him pain, which I think there was a game, and I can't remember the name. It was something ridiculous. That was like Bup, What's Up, or some shit like that, where he would wear no shirt and have them like run their fingernails as hard as they could down like his back. Like they would slide down him and and again with the paddle, and he would just play games with his children that caused him pain.
Just tell me he didn't do anything to any of his kids.
Not as far as I know, but he definitely did
Okay.
some shit to some kids.
Well, yeah, that's.
It was everybody else's kids.
Yeah,
It wasn't
exactly.
his kids.
So, throughout the children's life, they're going to be a part of it. You know, whether they really knew it or not.
Oh no, they were just playing with Daddy.
Yeah. So, he was arrested for embezzlement and was sentenced to a stint in Sing Sing in 1903, and regularly and comfortably had sex with men while in prison. So I think he's kind of still a little confused. You know, we were talking about 1882, and this is years later. He's 33 now.
Well, now he's surrounded by men, so it's just. you
Well,
know.
I think it's still, it's 1903. He may be still having trouble coming to terms with
being
with
gay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, question number 4, coming at you fast. What job did he have while he continued molesting boys after he got out of prison? Same 4 options. Was it food delivery, male prostitution, house painting, or cook?
You write so loud.
That's absolutely inaccurate.
Okay. What do we get? Kim says D, cook. Shai says
House painter.
C, house painter. After he gets out of prison and throughout 1898, Albert Fish would work as a house painter.
Oh my God, Mom, killing it.
Shai straight up on a roll, 750 to 0.
You know why? It's because you're not drinking. Normally you drink. Caught your judgment.
That's also the second time you've guessed cook.
I know. I figured
If
had
it
a
wasn't right the
better
first time, it
chance.
was right the second time.
this time around. Oh, guess not. Whatever.
It's okay. Hey, nobody wins anything.
Yeah, that's why I ain't tripping.
Don't trip, dog. So, throughout 1898, he worked as a house painter, and he said while he did this, he continued molesting children, mostly boys under 6. He said that
Ew.
a big part of it for him as a painter was easy because he was always wearing painter's overalls or coveralls, and he would be kind of covered in paint, so he would molest these boys. But then when it was 1898 to 1903, we're talking here, he wore the 5-piece suit and the derby cap, and when he wasn't wearing his painting whites, like, he looked like a far different man than he did when he was.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
He said that when he would, shed those clothes, he would be walking and see some of the boys that he molested and realized that they didn't recognize
They had
him.
no idea who he was.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because he molested them in his painter's outfit.
Right. That was his big.
It's his cover.
Yeah. I guess. In 1903, you didn't have to have as good a disguise. He later recounted an incident in which a male lover took him to a waxworks museum. Fish became fascinated by a bisection of a penis. Soon after, he developed a morbid interest in castration, and during a relationship with a mentally disabled man, Fish attempted to castrate him after tying him up. The man became frightened and fled, naturally, as you were trying to be castrated against your will.
And you're mentally disabled.
You're allowed to do that. So Fish then begins intensifying his visits to brothels where he could be whipped and beaten more often. So he was like that guy who would go in and pay them to stomp on his nuts and shit.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, they were like, well, what can we do for you, big boy? And he's like, I just really need you to beat the fucking shit out of me. Like, just real good. Just make me hurt real bad.
That's
I'm
insane.
going to lean over this chair and I want you to kick me in the jaw as hard as you can.
Like, if it can make him hurt, he would pay to have it done because
So it wasn't just sexually hurt. It wasn't just like...
Well, that's just it, is that every time it hurt, it was sexual to him.
Oh, I know, but it wasn't like he just wanted his private parts hurt. Any part of his body made him...
private parts.
I think he liked to have his
private parts
his
hurt.
junk kicked, and
Yeah.
he liked to feel the needles poke him.
But anything got him off.
I think some pain, any real pain got. I think he liked being being flogged.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
There you
the
go.
leather.
Oh, smacked with that thing?
Right.
Okay.
Cat of nine tails.
Cat of nine tails. Yeah, he liked that, and he would do it to self-immolation. No, that's flames, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's setting yourself on fire like that Buddhist monk.
I can't think of the other term they use for it, but when he'd do it himself, like he'd snap himself over the back with it when he couldn't get someone to do it for him.
You suppose he ever went out and just pick fights in public?
Oh, I
he was
bet.
just like, hey, Susan, and just shove the biggest guy there, so the guy would turn around and punch him in the nose. He's like, yeah, thank you, and just walks off.
It seems like it would be a good bet, right?
I mean, it's got to be cheaper than a whorehouse.
Yeah,
but
having to pay
maybe
someone.
because it was also so connected to sexual, he didn't want the big dude who he was going to get punched by to he didn't want to get the rager off that fellow.
Not his type.
Yeah, exactly. So the mentally disabled gentleman who he was in a relationship with Albert Fish, when attempted to be castrated by Albert Fish after being tied up, was able to escape and flee, and apparently got out safely. Fish then began intensifying his visits to the brothels to get his ass kicked. We kind of covered that in gross detail. In January 1917, his wife finally left him for a man named John Straub. a handyman who boarded with the Fish family. So the handyman was living with him, and then his wife left him for that guy.
That's what happens when you're a crappy husband.
Following this rejection by his wife, Fish begins to hear voices. Yes. So, for example, he once wrapped himself up in a carpet, explaining that he was following the instructions of John the Apostle. So, like I said at the beginning, his
church thing.
Yeah, his aunt had this religious mania, schizophrenia type thing, and he's kind of looking like he's heading there. Fish committed what may have been his first attack on a child, first serious attack beyond molestation, I should say. Named Thomas Bedden in Wilmington, Delaware in 1910. Afterwards, he attacked this boy, killing him, supposedly. This is one of the ones that they're not quite sure about. It's possible. Afterwards, he then stabbed a mentally disabled boy in around 1919 in Georgetown. Consistently, many of his intended victims would be either mentally disabled or African American because Albert Fish believed that these people would not be missed. On July 11th, 1924, Fish found 8-year-old Beatrice Keel playing alone on her parents' Staten Island farm. He offered her money to come and help him look for rhubarb in the neighboring fields. She was about to leave the farm when her mother chased Fish away. He left, but returned later to the Keel's barn, where he tried to sleep for the night before being discovered by Hans Keel, the husband, and told to leave. Right? Is this just not fucking creepy?
What?
He's just like floating around.
What was he going to do with the little girl? He was into little boys. Was he just out to kill someone?
I think at this point it's escalated to that
because his mania of the religion has just made him a little kooky.
I think he's always been kind of kooky and sadomasochistic and psychotic, and I'm not sure. I'm not a psychologist. He's got a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, we'll take a short break right here. We'll come back and we'll let Shy tell us a story.
Okay.
So take a break. Come back with the MaMa Chey original. Come back or I'll kill you.
See you in 2 and 2.
Let's bring it in here. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to all sit back and listen to MaMa Chey. She tells us a story. She gave me a brief rundown of it earlier, just so I can get an idea, and it's fucking creepy. So, without further ado, MaMa Chey.
Hey. So, for some reason, I always come with stories that involves children. One day I'm not going to.
You're on topic.
I know, but I got to get off the topic. Okay, so this, am I okay? Can you hear me? This is about a little girl named Candace Elmore. Candace had a pretty rough childhood. At the age of 5, her and her younger siblings were removed from their home for neglect. There were 3 separate social workers that had checked on the house, and finally one said, nope, we're terminating these parents because they're horrible. So 2 years after being taken from their parents, and after being in numerous foster homes, Candace was adopted by a well-known nurse named Jean Newmark, a single woman. She was a pediatric nurse practitioner.
So how old is the little girl at this time?
She's like 6.
Okay.
But no, 7, because she spent 2 years in foster care. So she's 7.
Okay.
So within months after her adoption, Jean began taking Candace to a psychiatrist, complaining about her behavior. And she wanted her treated with medicine she wanted her to be hers.
She wanted her to be obedient.
Yes, be my daughter. And, 5 years with your parents, 2 years in foster home, you're not just going to get adopted and be like, oh, hey, Mom, how are you? And it seems like that's what she wanted. So she was complaining about her attitude at home, and Candace was treated with medication, and her behavior got worse, supposedly including playing with matches and killing goldfish. But honestly, what kid doesn't kill a goldfish or play with matches?
Lots of kids.
Like intentionally kill a goldfish, or
No, I think kids that have problems, But then
I killed a hermit crab one time.
The fuck?
What's your problem, dude?
I didn't mean to. I got it at the farmer's market.
How
I didn't know what I
are
was gonna do with it. How do you take care of a hermit crab?
Admission corner, huh?
oh my God. Okay, so Jean was not happy with what was going on, so she got a referral to a psychologist that was in North Carolina. So Jean took Candace there, and for $7,000 for a 2-week intensive attachment therapy. During the second week, the first week was just, getting to know the two of them and everything. The second week was intense sessions. And scripts from that day are online, which are freaking insane. It was all recorded, so you hear word for word what's going on. And when I was reading it, it was just like insane. So
we'll post links to that.
Candace was wrapped in a flannel sheet to simulate a womb, and to extract herself from it, Jean wanted her born again to her, so they did a rebirthing, is what they called it.
They put her in a fucking blanket.
And wrapped her up.
A 7-year-old in a blanket and said, we're going to rebirth you.
Yeah. It's the craziest thing that I've ever heard. So 5 adults participated in the fetal session, including her adopted mother, Jean, a therapist, therapeutic foster parents. And it was just, so 5 adults were in the room, and they were yelling at her to push your hands out, push your feet out, free yourself. She was complaining and pleading and screaming for help. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And they said, if you want to be with me, be with me. Push yourself out. Be born to me. And it didn't go the way they wanted, obviously. But Candace started crying several times during the session that she was going to die. And they responded with, you want to die? Okay, then die. Go ahead and die right now. 20 minutes into the session, Candace had vomited all over herself and pooped herself. And she was still kept restrained with the flannel sheet. 40 minutes into the session, Jean asked Candace, baby, do you want to be born? Candace faintly responded with no. This would ultimately be her last word. To this, Julie, who is one of the women in there, called her a quitter. She said, quitter, quitter, quitter. She's a quitter. She's a quitter.
What the fuck therapist office is this, and where can I burn it down, please?
Yeah, it's in Colorado. So Jean felt that she was rejected because Candace's inability to be reborn. And she was not giving the yelling at her the way they wanted to, so they asked her to leave the room at that time. The therapist did. So soon after she left the room, it was 5 minutes later, and the two unwrapped Candace and found that she was motionless. She was blue, and her lips were blue, and she was not breathing. At first they thought she was sleeping, and then
yes, I too turn blue when I sleep.
yes.
Motionless.
But the crazy thing is, her mom was watching on a monitor in the other room when they had asked her to leave. So when when the mom rushed back in the room, being a nurse, she tried CPR. They called 911, and it took 10 minutes for the paramedics to arrive. And they told them that Candace had been left alone for 5 minutes, trying to, I guess, cover themselves about what happened. The paramedics believed that Candace had been unconscious for over the 5 minutes, what they said. They weren't able to restore her, and there was no pulse. She was flown by the helicopter to Denver, where they pronounced her dead. The entire session lasted 70 minutes, as well as 10 hours of other sessions that were taped that were probably just as bad. Julie, who was another one in the room, she, for some reason, got the most time in prison. She got 16 years in prison.
She had the worst lawyer.
Probably so. I don't know. I guess
That's exactly why. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's sad to say, but it's probably exactly why.
And I guess,
He didn't get her the best plea deal that the rest of them got.
the story, when you
It's
read
just
it
late
back,
when they were offering out their pleas.
yeah, when you read it back, it just doesn't give it when you have to go online and you have to read the timeline.
Yeah, we'll
right?
post a link and
Yeah.
we'll. I mean, did you say there was audio to it?
Yeah, well, not on there, but
the transcripts
Yeah,
are
it's a
available.
breakdown transcript, and when you're reading it, you're thinking, what the hell are these people doing? What are they doing to this little girl? Especially when she's screaming that she can't breathe, you're just thinking,
Okay, so what other prison sentences did the rest of them get? Does it say? Nothing like
Yeah.
even 16 years. They
no,
killed.
a plea bargain. She got 1,000. Two of the other people that were in there got 1,000 hours community service, and a plea bargain.
Yeah, I don't understand. It just seems like, well, what? She couldn't get out of her sheet and died. Well, these people aren't responsible for her death. They just put her in the sheet and told her she was a pussy for not being able to get out.
Exactly. The adopted mom, Jean, she was pled guilty to neglect and abuse charges and was given a 4-year suspended sentence, of which the charges were expunged from her record. I don't know how that happens.
Wait, so where's the murder? Like, who gets the murder? Even if it's second degree or manslaughter?
Well,
or
yeah, I guess they're more blaming it on the clinic that she went to, that person, that, you orchestrated this, you did this, you're the reason this little girl died. When you think about...
The blanket gets it.
Yeah, the blanket, it's all the blanket's fault.
Well, sorry, is there more?
No.
Oh, okay. It's like one of those things where it's like, as a parent, it's tough to, and I've never adopted a child. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's tough to imagine believing so much in a doctor that when my kid is wrapped in a blanket, a doctor of the mind you.
Yeah.
Like, not even a doctor who's saying, like, look, there's things inside your kid that you don't understand that I do. And not saying that a psychologist isn't that, but I can't imagine as a parent standing there for 70 minutes when my kid is wrapped in a blanket
Well, that's what
saying,
I'm thinking.
I can't breathe.
Do you really think her coming out of a blanket is going to make her think, oh, I'm rebirthed again?
Well, that
this
was
is my
for
mom.
sure not for the kid.
What year was this?
This is just
It's symbolic.
recently. I mean, it's in the recent years. I don't think I have the exact year.
Symbolic for sure, but it was for the mom. This was not for the kid. This is not for a 7-year-old.
Yeah, no, absolutely
This
not.
is something that the 7-year-old is going to tell their psychologist in 14 years when they're in therapy. Like,
Well, it's supposed to symbolize that the child cares enough to actually work its way out and, make it out to you. And it's supposed to be a big bonding moment for them. Like, you worked so hard to get out of this tough situation, and I was right here cheering you on the whole time. I'm supposed to be right here with you forever because I'm your mom.
Yeah.
I get it. But when you leave the room and let your kid die, it sends mixed signals.
It was in 2000. So, I mean, it was still, recent enough that.
yeah, YouTube wasn't out, so it wasn't the future yet.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, good job, Shy. That was
I think I do a lot better when I have alcohol in my.
not as nervous, huh? I'll pull my feet up, you guys. Okay, jeez.
Okay. Next time,
To be
definitely
fair,
alcohol.
you sound drunk either way. You mess up all of the words you say.
By the
I
way,
have alcohol in my. I feel better.
what a hater over here tonight.
Kim going for the low blows. She's trying to get some of these points back and trying to make
We
you
know
miss
who
it.
has alcohol in them tonight.
I'm sorry, what have I said incorrect?
So, all right, pithy. Grace Budd, you guys. This is when shit gets fucking wild with Albert Fish, and we're gonna, yeah, you'll see. May 25th, 1928, Edward Budd puts a classified ad in the Sunday edition of the New York World that read, "Young man, 18, wishes position in country. Edward Budd, 406 West 15th Street." So Edward Budd Sr. puts this in the newspaper because his 18-year-old son, who's just finished school, needs a job. He's a strapping young man. He's looking for a job out in the country. 3 days later, May 28th, 1928, Fish, then 58 years old, visited the Budd family in Manhattan under the pretense of hiring Edward to work on his farm. He introduced himself as Frank Howard, a farmer from question number 5. Where was Frank Howard a farmer from? So this is the made-up character by Albert Fish. Frank Howard. Where was he a farmer? Schenectady, Philadelphia, Farmingdale, or New Brunswick? Frank Howard, the farmer from Schenectady, Philadelphia, Farmingdale, or New Brunswick. Okay, Kim says New Brunswick. Shai says Schenectady. Frank Howard was from Farmingdale, New York. No points, no points.
Sounds fake.
Yeah, that's why I put it in there, because he's a farmer from Farmingdale.
That's what I thought. That just sounds too fake.
So when he arrived, Albert Fish meets with Bud's younger sister, 10-year-old Grace. She's out on the front patio and meets up with him first. Fish promised to hire Bud, but said that he would send for him in 2 days. So what we all know really happened here is that he came to get Edward Budd, take him back, and kill him. But when he got there, he realized, holy shit, this 18-year-old is fucking buff. Like, I'm a 58-year-old man. This guy's going to knock me the fuck out if I'm going to... Yeah, I don't think I could take him. So he turns his attention to Grace Budd, the 10-year-old. And she's like this little tomboy, and there's a couple pictures of her. You can kind of see, she's adorable. So Albert Fish takes a liking to her, I guess, while she's there. She's like sitting on his lap, and they're talking like the family. Like
They like him.
Yeah, well, I think also they're trying to get their son hired. So they're like, this guy's kind of fucking weird, but like he'll be out of here soon. Our son will have some money because he's working. So he convinced Delia and Edward Budd to let Grace accompany him to a birthday party of his sister's that evening for her daughter. So it's my niece's birthday. You should let me take Grace. Like, she'd have a great time. I'll come back and, and I'll get your son and we'll get him working. But first, you should let me take Grace to this birthday party. And Delia's like, I don't know. I don't know if really. And Edward Sr.
We need the money.
Edward Sr. is like, well, Grace doesn't ever get to go out and have any fun. Like, let's let her go with this man and go to this birthday party. He convinces him to let them go. He even gives them an address to the birthday, which we will later find does not exist. Edward Sr. was a porter for the Equitable Life Insurance Society. Grace had a sister, Beatrice, and 2 other brothers, Edward Budd Jr., George Budd. So Fish leaves with Grace that day and never to return to the family, and they would never see her alive again. What is this? Probably, I think it's 2 years later. They arrest a man named Charles Edward Pope in suspicion for the kidnapping. He was a 66-year-old apartment house superintendent, and he was accused by his estranged wife. He spent 108 days in jail between his arrest and trial on December 22nd, 1930. Question number 6. Albert will write the family a letter. How long will he wait until he does that? In years, how long until he writes this letter to the family?
Okay, the guy that was arrested, was he convicted?
He was convicted.
Okay, so he was convicted and went to jail for her murder, and then Albert writes a letter to the family to tell him he murdered her?
Albert writes an anonymous letter and sends it to the family. We'll later find out that it's Albert, but it arrives in an anonymous letter. How long later until that letter arrives? In years. No multiple choice on this one. Closest answer gets it. If you nail it, it's for 1,000 points. Shy, I saw your answer. Okay. Kim's, what is 4 years? Kim says 4. Shy says 5. 7 years later, November 1934. It looks like Shy pretty much puts it away with that one. We'll see what the 7th question brings, Kim.
How's that the first time you noticed that?
She has written it in question form for all the answers, and that was the first time I noticed. A lot of things get by me, Kim. A lot of things. That's just kind of my deal. That's kind of what I do. So 7 years later, November 1934, an anonymous letter was sent to Grace's parents, which led the police to Albert, which would eventually lead the police to Albert Fish. The letter is quoted here with all of Fish's misspellings and grammatical errors. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Yep.
So it says,
Dear Mrs. Budd, in 1894, a friend of mine shipped as a deckhand on the steamer Tacoma, Captain John Davis. They sailed from San Francisco to Hong Kong, China. Upon arriving there, he and 2 others went ashore and got drunk. When they returned, the boat was gone. At that time, there was a famine in China. Meat of any kind was anywhere from $1 to $3 per pound. So great was the suffering among the very poor that all children under 12 were sold for food, in order to keep the others from starving. A boy or girl under 14 years was not safe in the street. You could go in any shop and ask for a steak, chops, or stew meat. Part of the naked body of a boy or girl would be brought out and just what you wanted cut from it. A boy or girl's behind, which is the sweetest part of the body and sold as a veal cutlet, brought the highest price. John stayed there so long he acquired a taste for human flesh. On his return to New York, he stole 2 boys, one was 7, one 11, took them to his home and stripped them naked and tied them in a closet, then burned everything they had on. Several times every day and night he'd spank them, torture them, and beat them to make the meat good and tender. He first killed the 11-year-old boy because he had the fattest ass, and of course the meat on it, every part of his body was cooked and eaten except the head, bones, and guts. He was roasted in the oven, all of his ass, boiled, broiled, fried, and stewed. The little boy was next, went in the same way. At that time, I was living at 409 East 100th Street near the right side. He told me so often how good human flesh was that I made up my mind to taste it. On June the 3rd, 1928, I called on you at 406 West 15th Street, brought you pot cheese, strawberries, and we had lunch. Grace sat on my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind then to eat her, only on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes, she could go. I took her to an empty house in Westchester I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside. She picked wildflowers. I went upstairs and stripped all my clothes off. I knew I did not want to get blood on any of them. When all was ready, I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in a closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked, she began to cry and tried to run down the stairs. I grabbed her, and she said she would tell her mama. First, I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite, and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her into small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook, and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. I did not fuck her, though. I could have if I wished. She died a virgin.
That's
Oh
sick.
My God.
So that's a letter to get. Now, here's the problem, too, is that
Fucked
Miss...
up thing to get, man. Like, even if that wasn't your kid, that's a fucked up thing to get. And to get
Right.
it when
The
it is your
whole
kid.
time I'm just cringing, thinking, this dude is messed up.
Also,
big time.
Mrs. Budd was illiterate, so she could not read the letter herself, so she had one of her sons read it to her. Fish later admitted to his attorney that he did indeed rape Grace before she was killed, and she did not die a virgin. Fish was a compulsive liar, however, so that could have also been untrue.
Just don't
He had
know.
told the police when asked about the rape that it never even entered his head to rape the girl. He also told police that during the train ride that he and Grace took, her last ride, he forgot the tools with which he was going to kill her. She realized this and ran back and got them on the train for him. He said, quote, "If she had not gone back, she would be in her home now and I would not be here," while speaking to the police. So he said, like, she realized in time, because if you get off the train, it's fucking gone.
Yeah, it's
she
gone.
realized right before they got off that he had gotten on with something in his hands.
And
he
she
was
ran
getting
back,
off without
so
it.
she
ran back,
wrote her
grabbed
own
the bag,
death
and
sentence.
yes.
Oh, poor
So he even
baby.
said, like, she would be home and I would not be here if she hadn't gotten that that shit. So,
That's morbid.
yeah, let's take one more small mini break and we'll come back with two stories, one by Kim, one by Greg, and then we're going to finish up with Albert Fish. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 53. Family up in this piece, motherfuckers. So, we're going to do double stories right here so we don't have to do another break. Because who wants this? This one's going to drag y'all.
Ugh.
So, we're going to let Kim tell a story. Kim actually missed the last time she was going to be on the show. So, this is the story she was going to tell then. So, we've been kind of sitting on the story for a while. So, it's kind of cool.
Researching.
Yeah, we've had months to get into this.
Yes.
Better be good.
And then we'll jump into a story from Greg, which is also a very good story. So take it away, Kim.
All right, we were talking Cabin 28. Nice night, April 11th, 1981 in Ketty, California. We're talking backwoods here. Sue Sharp had a nice little cabin rented out to live there with her 5 children. Unbeknownst to her, this would be where she was murdered.
Dang, Kim's doing a radio play? Yeah, seriously. Where's my
Music,
soundboard?
Yeah.
Just doing it myself. Yeah, but no, for real. So Sue was murdered there with her 2 youngest Oh, sorry, no. With two of her children, two of her oldest sons, and one of their friends. But Sue's 4 of her children were actually home. So Sue was at home with 2 of her 2 youngest sons, and one of their friends was over having a sleepover. They were just in their room watching TV, hanging out.
And they just live in the cabin?
Yeah, in one of the back rooms in the cabin is where the boys were. It's just a small little kind of cabin. So Sue's 2 youngest boys were back there in the room with a friend watching TV, having this little sleepover. About 10 o'clock, Tina's youngest daughter returns home. She was over at her neighbor's over at Cabin 27 watching TV. So Sue's 2 oldest sons spent the day in town with a friend. So unbeknownst exactly the timeline, they either returned home during or before the murders, but either way, they did not survive this one. It was Sue, John, and Dana were all found by Sue's oldest daughter in the morning. Actually, she was over having a sleepover, so she returns home, finds their 3 bodies bound with medical tape, appliance wire, stabbed, bludgeoned, and strangled. They all had blows to the head with multiple hammers, multiple size blows.
Multiple separate hammers?
Yes, different hammers. So Sue died by being bludgeoned by a rifle, along with all the other stab wounds and whatnot. Dana died, he was strangled by hand. So they found most of the murder weapons at the house, but they found some behind like a local store, just like bloody knives and a bloody hammer just
like
behind
they just
a
went
local
and ditched
store.
them?
Yeah, just like
It was just one person that did it?
Well, kicker here, it's unsolved. But definitely more than one, what do you call it?
I think they have sketches of 2 people,
yes,
right?
there's sketches of 2 people, Bo and Marty Smith. So a lot of people think that it's actually a cover-up because Bo is actually, Bo, they're both actually deceased now, but Bo was friends with the sheriff. And Bo was said to have been a hitman for the Chicago and Las Vegas mobs. And so the whole relationship was that Sue had an affair with Bo, which messed up Bo's marriage because so the case went cold because they think it was cover up. So because they said, there's no way that these 2 men, they say there were between 2 and 6 men that did it, but they, they really nailed down these 2 that they thought did it. There's no way they could have left that house without just being like covered in blood and, so much DNA, I'm sure, is everywhere. But they actually found a letter because they reopened the case like years later. And then they actually had found a letter that Bo had written to his wife when he was trying to get back with her. And he was like, basically the letter was like, I killed these 4 people for you. And now you like don't even want to get back together with me. Ugh. So, and actually also what was creepy is, so the oldest daughter walks in, she finds Sue, Dana, and the other son, John. And she finds them. And then she, goes through the house, and then she finds in the back room that the 2 young sons and their friend were totally unharmed. They must have been like asleep,
Just never
so
woke
they
up.
didn't
Yeah.
know
Like
they were
asleep.
home.
They never woke up, and neighbors said that they never heard a sound. So, I mean, somehow, maybe they put like, duct tape
Bound
over
and
their
gagged them
mouths
and
or
something.
whatever. But neighbors said, they never heard like a sound. It's a pretty like tight little like a cabin community.
Yeah, and 3 people, that'd be...
Yeah, so they said they never heard a sound. But so Tina Sharp, one of her daughters, she was missing. Her body was missing, whatever. So what's really creepy is 3 years later, somebody called and said, oh, we found the remains of Tina Sharp, and just hung up the phone. And then so obviously, the sheriff, the police, they went out there and they had to do, it was just a skull. It was a fragment of her skull.
Like nothing someone could have just known.
Yes, exactly. Like they never could have
so
known it
someone-
was her. They had to do like dental records to determine it was her because after 3 years, your body's totally decomposed.
So they left the other people's house but took her?
No, well, they don't really know
Oh,
if
they
she
don't, yeah.
ran or they dragged her out.
Like
you
maybe
know,
they stabbed her a
Okay.
couple times and she got 2 miles down the road
Yeah.
and whatever.
they weren't really. They weren't really. There's a lot that's unknown
Because no one was ever convicted.
And
Yeah.
it may be a cover up. So there
Yeah.
could be just evidence that's been destroyed or
Yeah.
Yeah. But they definitely say it's like a crime of passion. It was such a violent nature, and the house wasn't robbed. It wasn't ransacked. Like nothing was missing.
They just went in to kill.
Yeah, and they think it was probably the affair that really was, kind of drove it in. But yeah, pretty crazy. But they've tried they reopened the case, I think in 2003, and then in 2004 they actually demolished that cabin along with like a couple other ones. And then just recently in like 2012, somewhere around there, People magazine or People the show, they did another thing on it. I mean, the thing is, both the suspects are dead now, but it would still be nice for the remaining
Little
family to have
closure.
when was
justice.
this again? I'm sorry. It was the 80s, right?
81.
1981.
So are these suspects dead due to natural causes? This is 30 years ago and they were
You know what? I
35
actually didn't
then.
look too much into their
Okay.
cause of death.
But they are just both dead
It just
now.
said they were deceased.
Yeah, there's a lot about this story, and I'm sure you can, you had to cram it down into 5 or 10 minutes, but you could probably do hours on this case.
And
There's
especially just
so
on the
much-
suspects alone,
Right.
because they have such like a background too. But that was kind of the nuts and bolts.
That's why
of the
months
story.
ago when you were like, throw me some ideas, I was like, dude, like you can just, because you could just pick a portion of the story and
Yeah.
tell it, and there's so much more to this one. And we'll post some links to some content on this one. There's actually an entire website dedicated to this case. So
On Reddit too, there's a
Oh,
ton of
man.
people with like
Yes.
theories. Yeah,
there
it's
are a
crazy.
lot of web sleuths that work through Reddit that have like solved cases. So there's a lot of crazy things out there, and I'd be curious to see what a lot of people thought about this case. So anything else important that we should know?
I think that was all my important info.
Cool, very cool.
Thank you.
I should have brought you this when you were saying all that super fucking intense stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, where was I? It was in my pocket. Sorry.
Dang it.
Well, Greg's got a story for us too, so we're just going to go back to back from Kim's story to Greg's story. We will finish up with Albert Fish after this, even though no one really wants to. Greg, you've done this before. Take it away.
Actually, this time there's a twist.
What a twist.
Yeah, there are points to be awarded during my story.
Oh.
There's a question
snap.
that you have to. Well, I mean, you don't have to answer because fuck me, who am I? But I don't know how many points it's going to be worth. That's up to Jesse. But I am here today to tell you the story of Aaron Joseph Hernandez. I don't know if either of you guys know who that is.
Is he a football player?
He was a football player.
He was a football player.
Yeah, he was actually he was born November 6th, 1989 in Bristol, Connecticut, which, by the way, have you ever looked at how Connecticut's spelled?
Connecticut.
Yeah, that shit's fucked up. That I was like trying to spell it and it kept putting red squiggles underneath it, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I had to Google it, and I was like, oh my God.
I think Bristol, Connecticut is also the headquarters of ESPN.
Huh. Fitting. Anyway, he was born November 6th, 1989 in Bristol, Connecticut to Dennis and Terry Hernandez. Dennis died in 2006 when Aaron was just 16. He was just a young lad, and
Forming time of life.
yeah, absolutely. And as the way it goes, he rebelled pretty hard. He had a lot of troubles with authority figures after that point. I mean, he played along with the stuff he liked, but he most of the time clashed with pretty much any authority figure there was. However, he was an all-star athlete. He broke all kinds of state records, and I think he still holds some current state records if they haven't taken him down. He played both sides of the ball on his high school football team. He was number 1 in the state for receiving yards and number 7 in the nation throughout his high school career.
How about that?
He in April of 2007, he also went to a restaurant at the age of 17, consumed 2 alcoholic beverages, and then refused to pay the bill. And they were pretty much telling him that he had to, and he was pretty much saying, make me. And so they escorted him out. And the employee who escorted him out turned his back, was walking inside, and Aaron Hernandez sucker punched him in the side of the head and ruptured his eardrum.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's just generally a dick move. The police department actually recommended felony charges, but it was settled out of court. So, also 2007, Randall Carson, Justin Glass, and Corey Smith were sitting at a stoplight in Gainesville, and their car was shot 5 times. He was actually Aaron Hernandez was in Gainesville at this time.
Right, and that's his college town.
Yeah, it's a college town. That's where he went to college, University of Florida, and he was probably there, I don't know, scouting, because he was still young, but this is right about the time he would have been going into college. They said that they were stopped at a stoplight in Gainesville, and their car was shot 5 times. Carson was in the back seat, and he said the shooter was of large build, Hispanic or Hawaiian male. He guessed around 230 pounds and had plenty of tattoos. One of the guys, the driver, I believe, was hit in the arm by the shooting, and the passenger was hit in the head. He didn't die, but he still suffers seizures as a result of being shot in the fucking head and surviving.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, he lost all the vision in one eye, too.
That's a different guy. That
Yep.
is a different guy. We are getting to that.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. That just goes to show you how much Aaron Hernandez's reputation precedes him as, being a piece of shit. He wasn't charged at that time, even though they talked to him about it and questioned him and stuff. He wasn't charged, but then later on, after everything else had happened, they were like,
listen,
maybe we should have charged him. In fact, what I have right here says, upon further review, the ruling of everyone involved was overturned.
Whoopsie-daisy. Made a mistake.
Yeah. Again, he played for the University of Florida. He was on the same team as pastor, quarterback, baseball player, and spreader of the word of the Lord, Tim Tebow. And he was also on the same team as often talked about, not very well-known racist, Riley Cooper.
Yeah.
So that's, a lot of talent coming off that team, a lot of personality coming off that team.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer kind of fostered that. He liked everybody to have their personality, it seemed like. He did well with the Gators. He skipped his senior year and declared for the NFL draft. His rookie contract included an additional $700,000 in bonuses over 4 years, and he had to, quote, walk the straight and narrow to get it. So basically, they said he was up front. They said he failed a drug test in college, and they said he was very candid about it. When teams that were interested in him asked, he was like, yeah, I smoked pot one time, and I failed a drug test because of it, and I couldn't play, and that sucked, and I'm not going to do it again. And they were all like, yeah, okay.
What a lesson.
Yeah, he was... the Patriots are kind of known to do that, take guys who have a colored background or a...
LeGarrette Blount.
LeGarrette. Yeah, guys who sucker punch the dude on the sideline after a football game. They take
During
the guys...
an interview with ESPN.
Yeah, they take the guys who, have the storied pasts because, they can get them on the cheap and they can offer them big incentives to not fuck up.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what they did. He did pretty well in the 2010-2011 season. He racked up some accolades. He did well in the 2011-2012 season. He was becoming a pivotal part of the team. He was playing well. He was getting along with everybody. Even when Chad Ochocinco came to the team, Aaron Hernandez gave up number 85 and switched back to his old number 81.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Just because Chad Ochocinco's name was Ochocinco, because in a very short-sighted move, he named himself after his number.
Stupid.
Which Ochocinco is not even 85. It's 85.
Right. Chad 85. He was, in 2012, he was questioned in a double murder in July when Daniel Jorge Correa de Abreu, who was 29, and Safira Teixeira Furtado, who was 28, turned up dead on the south side of Boston. They were immigrants from the Canary Islands, and And I'm sure that's not how you say it. I don't think it's actually Canary Islands, but that's
What would it be? The Canary Islands?
probably. But I just remembered it as the Canary Islands from Looney Tunes. That's where the birds would always look when they got out of the cage. Spin the globe, stop there, and fly out. So that's where those guys were from. Thanks to the testimony of a known drug dealer, Hernandez was on trial for the murders, amongst other charges. So this drug dealer witnessed it. They put Hernandez on trial for the murders. They said, you did this. Not only did you kill these two guys, after you were driving away, you stopped, and then you opened fire on the vehicle full of survivors. Just because. And
Yeah, so what?
Question number, I don't know, what number is this?
Should be question number 7.
Question number 7. What charge did they stick Aaron Hernandez with for that crime? Was it A, murder, B, manslaughter, C, felony accessory to murder, or D, illegal possession of a handgun? And since I can't see you, you can just shout them out whenever.
C.
D.
Ooh, Kim on the board. He got illegal possession of a handgun out of that whole thing.
What?
Yeah.
Shit's cray.
Yeah.
Operation Don't Get Shut Out is a success for you, Kim.
Congratulations. Glad I could help.
Thanks,
Get
Greg.
the assist in there.
Okay.
In June of 2013, one of his friends, Alexander Bradley, filed a civil suit against him for shooting him while they were driving in Palm Beach County after an altercation at a strip club.
Oh, well, of course. Strip clubs.
Yeah,
They do crazy shit.
You go to a strip club in Palm Beach County, you get in a fight, you drive away, you shoot your
shoot
friend.
Yeah, you shoot them. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Casual.
Right. As a result of the shooting, Bradley lost his right eye. So
Oh,
his eye is
that's the
gone.
guy.
That's the guy. And because so he filed a civil suit because I don't think there were any criminal charges pressed. I don't know that he pressed charges. I think they were probably both involved in some shady shit and didn't want to get the police involved.
It's like, listen, man, you could just cut me like 50 grand of that NFL money you're about to get.
Right. And so he filed a civil suit later to get some of that dough. And because his paperwork was misfiled, the charges were later dropped.
Wow.
Justice.
Crappy lawyer.
Actually, his lawyer did refile them in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Which yeah. On June 18th, 2013, the police raided his house, investigating a dead body found about a mile from his house. The body had multiple gunshot wounds in the back. And it was also a friend of Aaron Hernandez named Odin Lloyd.
He was also like a semi-pro football player, right?
Yeah, and they were friends. They were buddies. They hung out. They were known to be together. And his dead body showed up a mile from Aaron Hernandez's house. When they got their search warrant, Aaron Hernandez turned in his cell phone. He smashed it into pieces before he turned it in. They scrubbed his security camera. Like they destroyed the security camera. They destroyed the footage and everything from that night. And they also said he had a team of cleaners come through the same day that Odin's body was found. So there was a team of professional cleaners that came in and just cleaned the house all spotless.
How convenient.
Like I remember one of the cops saying that it smelled like bleach in his house still when they got there.
Just gonna say because nothing says I didn't kill anybody
Then the smell
like
of
a house that
bleach.
smells like ammonia.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. 2 days after that happened, he was barred from Gillette Stadium. Robert Kraft said, "We really don't want to turn this into a social media frenzy, so you're not allowed here anymore."
Yeah.
6 days after that, Aaron Hernandez is in custody. He was held without bail on first-degree murder and 5 felony gun-related charges. So it was a pretty swift process, about 8 days from start to finish to get him into custody. August 22nd, 2013, he was indicted and pled not guilty. Turns out he was guilty.
Yeah, there was a lot of evidence against him, besides what Greg just said. There was like a
Yeah.
piece of chewing gum and a rental car with his DNA on it, right? Isn't that?
Oh yeah, I mean I don't want to sit here and list all the evidence.
Yeah, there was a
but-
lot
Yeah,
against him.
basically he did nothing to cover his tracks.
Well, and wasn't Odin Lloyd
tell
like
people?
texting his girlfriend that night, going like, "I think these guys are gonna kill me. Like, if I don't come home tonight, I'm with Aaron Hernandez. I'm with
Yeah.
yeah." It
And
was,
like, I mean, I think he told people about it too. I'm pretty sure he mentioned it to somebody that he's like, yeah, this fucking happened. So what? And they were like, whoa, really? And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. So as a result of being found guilty from this, he got the full Pete Rose treatment. He was stripped from the game entirely. His name and likeness was taken from all the video games that he'd been involved in. Jersey immediately taken down from the team store. There was a photo of him high-stepping away from Sam Shields, Green Bay Packer defensive back. And that was immediately taken down out of the Hall of Fame. He lost about $20 million in contract money. And even more in endorsements because Puma and Crido something or other, they both pulled their endorsements.
yeah.
So I mean, seriously, he could have had $20 million and all he had to do was not kill somebody. Like the frustrating part is I don't kill people all the time for fucking free.
Yep. What's
I feel like I'm just giving it away over here.
Yeah, you got to change it. You got to work on your portfolio.
April 19th, 2017, the story comes to a grim end when Aaron Hernandez was found hanging in his cell by his bed.
I just wrote that down. I was going to show Jess. Didn't he kill himself in prison?
Yep.
You like hang himself from the elastic in his underwear.
No, it was his bed sheets.
That's right.
Yeah. It's so funny when you said Aaron Hernandez. I was like, man, I just read something about him this morning. And it was this article, stupid story, but it was how someone had Aaron Hernandez and O.J. Simpson's jerseys both signed for sale on eBay for $10,000.
Oh, my God.
10 grand, man.
Yeah.
If they weren't 10 grand, like, hey, you know what? Right now, patreon.com/serial chillers podcast.
Or
I want those fucking jerseys.
$466 a month for 24 months if you want them, you know? I mean,
I want that Orenthal James jersey. Yes. I want the O.J. Simpson jersey. I don't care so much about the Aaron Hernandez one because he was kind of a
Let the screen
douchebag.
cap
I
it
still
and
think
send it to us.
the juice was innocent. The
The
glove
oh
didn't
my
fit.
God. Hot take, dude. The juice was innocent, huh?
Well,
Of what?
well,
the juice was not guilty.
Yeah, and then the civil trial. Anyway, well, great.
And the book that was called "If I Did It, Here's How I Did It."
Yeah. Well,
Aaron Hernandez's
I
book
did
was
it.
called "Yeah, I Did It."
exactly.
wonderful story, Greg.
Yes, Finn.
I'll give you one of these.
Woo.
Yeah, good shit, man. Yeah, I remember following that one pretty closely. You know, as a big sports fan.
I remember the memes.
Yeah, there were a lot of memes. I just remember, you know, because it was like you said, you know, it was only like 8 days from could he have done this to he is
Yeah,
arrested, and we're pretty sure he did this.
It was 8 days from Aaron Hernandez being questioned in a double murder case. Like they just want to talk to him and know what happened. And then 8 days later, it was
Right.
holy shit, Aaron Hernandez just killed this guy. Oh yeah, and do you remember the 2012 double murder that he was a part of?
Oh yeah, how about that attack on those other guys? Oh yeah, remember his homie he shot in the face too?
Right?
Yeah, so that was kind of how it went down for him. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Greg. Thank you,
Yep.
Shai. You guys had great stories. But let's finish up with our good friend, Albert Fish. So if you guys will remember, we talked about the letter that had been received by Mrs. Budd about her daughter, Grace. The letter was delivered in an envelope that had a small hexagonal emblem with the letters NYPCBA, standing for the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. A janitor at the company told police he had taken some of the stationery home, but left it at his rooming house at 200 East 52nd Street when he moved out. The landlady of the rooming house said that Fish had checked out of that room a few days earlier. So look how crazy these little pieces fall in here. He's like, here's this fucking random stationery. I'm going to write this and I'm checking out of this bitch. What? It's never coming back to me. And it very much came back to him in a very, very fast way.
That was the days of good detective work, though.
Exactly.
I mean, they really had to do actual
Work.
beat run through the soles of their shoes detective work, get out there and like follow leads and do all that shit. And yeah.
Good point. Let's see. The landlady of the estate said that she said that Fish's son sent him money and then he had asked her to hold his next check for him. So they knew that he'd be coming back. William F. King, the lead investigator, waited outside the hotel until Fish returned. He agreed to go to the headquarters for questioning, but at the street door lunged at King with a razor in each hand. Remember, Albert Fish is pretty much an old man at this point. He's 60 years old. He's 65, I believe, at this point. So William King is able to disarm Fish and take him to police headquarters. And also think about it, too, like, not saying this happens all the time, but when would you hear about a guy lunging at a cop with two razors in each hand and the cop disarming him and taking him in?
Yeah.
It's usually just getting shot in the face at that point. Fish made no attempt to deny the Grace Budd murder, saying that he had meant to go to the house to kill Edward Budd, but plans had changed. So he's pretty much like, he knows they've got him. So while they've got him, they find out a few other things. There was this kid named Billy Gaffney that went missing at one point. He was playing in the hallway outside of his family's apartment in Brooklyn with his friend Billy Beaton on February 11th, 1927. Both of the boys disappeared, but the friend was found on the roof of the apartment. When asked what happened to Gaffney, Beaton said, "The boogeyman took him." Initially, Peter Kudzanowski was a suspect in the murder of Billy Gaffney. He was like the main guy that they were looking at for the longest time, and it seemed that Albert Fish had a very good knack for getting people to look at someone else for his crimes. Joseph Meehan, a motorman on a Brooklyn trolley, saw a picture of Fish in the newspaper and identified him as the old man that he saw February 11th, 1927, who was trying to quiet a little boy sitting on the trolley with him. So he was trying to get this little kid to be, shut up. Police matched the description of the child from the trolley driver to that of Billy Gaffney. Gaffney's body was never recovered. Billy's mother would visit Fish in Sing Sing on multiple occasions to try to get more details of her son's death. Fish confessed the following in writing.
I brought him to the Riker Avenue dumps. There is a house that stands alone not far from where I took him. I took the boy there, stripped him naked and tied his hands and feet, gagged him with a piece of dirty rag that I picked out of the dump. Then I burned his clothes, threw his shoes in the dump. Then I walked back and took the trolley to 59th Street and at 2 a.m. walked from there home. Next day, about 2 p.m., I took tools, a good heavy cat o' nine tails, homemade, short handle, cut out of one of my belts, slit in half, slit these halves into 6 strips about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till the blood ran from his legs. I cut off his ears, nose, and slit his mouth from ear to ear, gouged out his eyes, and he was dead then. I stuck the knife into his belly and held my mouth at his body and drank his blood. I picked up 4 potato sacks and gathered a pile of stones, then I cut him up. I had a grip with me. I put his nose, ears, and a few slices of his belly in the grip. Then I cut him through the middle of his body, just below the belly button, then through his legs and about 2 inches below his behind. I put this in my grip with a lot of paper. I cut off the head, feet, arms, hands, and legs below the knee. This I put in sacks weighed with stones, tied them at the ends, and threw them into the pools of slimy water you will see all along the road going to the North Beach. I came home with my meat. I had the front of his body that I liked the best. his monkey and peewees, and a nice little fat behind to roast in the oven and eat. I made a stew out of his ears, nose, pieces of his face, and belly. I put onions, carrots, turnips, celery, salt, and pepper. It was good. Then I split the cheeks of his behind open, cut off his monkey and peewees, and washed them first. I put strips of bacon on each cheek of his behind and put them in the oven. Then I picked 4 onions, and when the meat had roasted about a quarter hour, I poured about a pint of water over it for gravy, and then I put it in the onions. At frequent intervals, I basted his behind with a wooden spoon so the meat would be nice and juicy. In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown and cooked thoroughly. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as his sweet little behind did. I ate every bit of the meat in about 4 days. His little monkey was as sweet as a nut, and his peewees I could not chew, so threw them in the toilet.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's where it ends.
Yeah, and that's the serial killer's part. No, so yeah, it's rough. So he's previously been incarcerated to this murder. He was married on February 6th, 1930 at Waterloo, New York to Estella Wilcox and divorced after just 1 week. He had been arrested in May 1930 for sending an obscene letter to an African-American woman who answered an advertisement for a maid. He had been sent to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital in 30 and 31 for observation following his arrests. His trial and eventual execution would look something like this. The trial of Albert Fish for the premeditated murder of Grace Budd began on Monday, March 11th, 1935 in White Plains, New York, with Frederick P. Close as the judge and Chief Assistant District Attorney Albert F. Gallagher as the prosecuting attorney. James Dempsey was Fish's defense attorney, and the trial lasted for 10 days. Fish pleaded insanity and claimed to have heard voices from God telling him to kill the children. Several psychiatrists testified about Fish's sexual fetishes, including coprophilia, that's his love of feces, urophilia, pedophilia, and masochism. But there was a disagreement as to whether these activities meant that he was insane. The defense's chief expert witness was Frederick Wortham, a psychiatrist with a focus on child development who conducted psychiatric examinations for the New York criminal courts. Wortham stated that Fish was indeed insane. Another defense witness was Mary Nicholas, Fish's 17-year-old stepdaughter. She described how Fish taught her and her brothers and sisters a game involving overtones of masochism and child molestation. So now, I mean, these aren't like people that kind of know him and from work, or it's his stepdaughter saying yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you guys, Albert Fish was fucked up. I told you. You should have got a clue when Greg was like, I can't believe you're doing Albert Fish with your mom and your sister.
Ugh.
It wasn't the original plan, but that's how the things go, you guys, here at the Serial Chillers podcast.
We're doing it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live! Another defamation. Let's see. Okay, so she described how Fish taught him the games involving overtones and masochisms and child molestation. The jury found him to be sane and guilty, and the judge ordered the death sentence.
Good.
After being sentenced, Fish confessed to the murder of 8-year-old Frances McDonnell, who was killed on Staten Island. Frances was playing on the front porch of his home near Port Richmond, Staten Island, on July 15th, 1924. Frances's mother saw an old man walk by, clenching and unclenching his fists. He walked past without saying anything to the family. Later in the day, the old man was seen again, but this time he was watching Frances and his friends play. Frances's body was found in the woods near where a neighbor had seen Frances and the old man going earlier that afternoon. He had been assaulted and strangled with his own suspenders. Fish arrived in March of 1935 and was executed on January 16, 1936. Question number 8.
Ooh.
We'll call it like this. Kim, if you get it right, Mom gets it wrong. It's a draw. Get it right, you win. Get it right, you can tie. How was Albert Fish executed?
What year was this?
What was the method of execution? 1936.
Okay.
Sing Sing Prison, 1936. How was he executed?
This isn't multiple choice?
No.
Oh, shit. Let me think. 36.
Either way, you can't lose, though, tonight, Shy. So congratulations.
All I do is win, win, win.
That's
Well.
wrong.
All right.
Okay.
You guys got something for me? Shy says hanging. Kim says the electric chair. Kim's going to tie Shy. They did it. The electric chair at Sing Sing. So you guys are going to leave here with a tie today. Congratulations.
That's cool. High five me.
You always win because you're my mama.
You always win because you're my baby
There's
bear.
no artistic challenge to break the tie.
Artistic challenge? I drew a picture of a hangman.
Would you guys like to
did.
participate in an artistic challenge to break the tie?
No, because then I'll lose.
Yeah, Shy wants to hold on to her tie. I'm okay with that. It was a stretch. It was a stretch to make the tie happen anyway. I wanted you guys to both leave happy. That's what's really going on here. The game doesn't matter. It's the story, guys. There's a little more, though. So the electric chair at Sing Sing is how it's done. He entered the chamber at 11:06 p.m. and was pronounced dead 3 minutes later. Wow. He was buried in the Sing Sing prison cemetery and was recorded to have said that the electrocution would be the supreme thrill of my life.
Oh, my God.
Sweet niblets.
What a fuck. So just before the switch was flipped, he stated, "I don't even know why I'm here." One of his big things about Grace Budd was that he was being charged with kidnapping as well. And he said, "Yes, I may have murdered her, but if both of her parents agreed that I took her, where is the kidnapping charge in that?"
Because it was under false
I
pretenses.
was like, "Damn it, you ain't wrong, I guess."
So that's probably why that exists now.
Yeah.
So, legend has it that his execution took longer than normal due to the numerous needles inserted into his private areas, which disrupted the flow of electricity, thus making it take longer to complete the cycle.
He had a little bit of enjoyment when he was dying.
Yes.
That sick
So,
son of a bitch.
there's a couple possible victims of Albert Fish. He denied involvement with any other murders. However, he was a suspect in 3 other murders. Detective William King believed Fish may have been the Brooklyn vampire, a rapist and murderer who mainly preyed on children. They were Yetta Abramowitz, who was 12. She was strangled and beaten on the roof of a 5-story apartment house at 1013 Simpson Street. She died in the hospital soon after she was found. The murderer escaped, but 20 detectives and many uniformed policemen were hunting for a tall young man who is said to have tried to lure several young girls into the neighborhood into dark alleys on May 14th, 1927. In 1932, Mary Ellen O'Connor, who was 16, in Far Rockaway in Queens. In February 15th, 1932, her mutilated body was found in the woods close to a house that Fish had been painting. And in 1932, Benjamin Collings' body was found. He was a 17-year-old male as well, believed to be a possible victim of the Brooklyn vampire. So we're not sure about those last ones. We are sure about the 3 murders that Fish admitted to doing. Although it was just 3, and I know when you say that, oh, just 3.
Just 3, but how many are unsolved? And, it's weird because the trial thing, I would have personally said, oh, he's not crazy, but to be able to eat a child and the way he describes it,
yeah,
that just makes you think.
Without empathy.
Yeah, exactly,
Like having written a letter to the parents about how delicious it was and pretty much making it a recipe for them.
Yeah. Oh, God, that just turns me.
That's nasty.
Yeah. So, Albert Fish, not a good dude. Thank you for revisiting that with us, everybody. Greg, second time around, step by step, like. So, that's it. Congratulations on your guys' tie. Shy, you didn't lose, and that's a
win.
It's a step forward.
You won.
Thank you guys for staying late night. It's almost 11 o'clock, so I appreciate that. As always, Greg from across the internet. Anything you'd like to add to the show as we head out here?
What was I trying to fundraise for earlier?
Your jersey.
Jerseys, right. If not that, the anti-paparazzi scarf.
Greg wants an anti-paparazzi scarf or a lot of O.J. Simpson and Aaron Hernandez autographed jerseys that he would like to get his hands on.
Not so down with the Aaron Hernandez.
He just wants the OJ jersey. Yeah.
But they're being sold as a pair, so...
But I'm sure you could find an OJ one on there by itself. It's
Somebody want to go like 99-1 with me and get the Aaron Hernandez jersey, and I'll take the OJ jersey?
Patreon.com/Serial Chillers Podcast. Thanks, Greg, for the story. Thanks, Shy, for the story. Thanks, Kim, for the story. And thank you guys for listening to episode 53 of the Serial Chillers Podcast.
Peace out.
That was episode 53. Seriously, thank you to anybody who made it through that shit. Albert Fish. What more can be said now that was not said in the episode that was already way fucked up? So let's just move on. Thank you, Mama Chey and Sister Kim, for cruising by on this one. I know you guys are all gigantic Mama Chey fans, so I hope this scratched that itch for you. That'll be the last time you hear her in season 3. So, reach out to the show if you want. You guys can do it in a lot of ways. Facebook is Serial Chillers Podcast. The Facebook group is Serial Chillers Podcast. Closed group, wait for acceptance. We have big plans for that rolling into season 3. Instagram, Serial Chillers Podcast. The Twitter is @Chillers Podcast. Email, serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. Text or call the show 1-805-666-2513. Also, available now, Unigreg merchandise at serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com. Go there and buy something with Unigreg's face slapped right on it. Patreon.com/Serial Chillers Podcast is also a way you can support the show. We appreciate so much how much people have given so far, and we appreciate everybody who's thinking about doing it in the future. Patreon.com/Serial Chillers Podcast. Thank you guys all so much for listening. Thank you again to all the hosts. Thank you again to co-host Greg. Go buy your Unigreg merchandise. And remember, don't talk to strangers.
This has been another presentation from Super Network.